noches.
Good evening. Let's close this event now with some final reflections. First of all, that the man should know what he can do. That was a very good message. Thank you, Breogán. Thank you for us, for the community, for our children, particularly for my grandsons who are over there. My grandchildren, sorry. We are now in a very special moment in the world and in IT. Juan Grompone, some years ago, told us history is accelerating. Of course, it accelerates. And IT, on IT in particular. Now, how does it accelerate? When does it accelerate? And why? I think that it always accelerates, but not in a uniform way. It has great leaps. There are milestones where acceleration increases in a huge proportion. And the last 50-something years of commercial IT in the world, and in my 51 years of IT, what do I find? I find I can perceive three moments that changed the world. But before telling you what are those moments, I'm going to tell you my theory, then we'll discuss it with Juan in a round table about why this acceleration. There are several elements that play a role in that acceleration, mainly the number of people that is involved. The second one, the degree of freedom that these people have for the use of technology, and the third one, the easy use, the friendly use of that technology. And there must be more, but these three are the major ones. For me, the first great acceleration moment was 1981. The launching and dissemination of the PC, because the number of users that had access to IT increased enormously. Second moment, the second moment, 1995, the launching of Internet for commercial purposes and the web dissemination at worldwide level. Why? Two reasons. A very large increase in the user capability, and that's where the freedom factor appears. Until then, users were a closed group within the companies and with a high dependency of those companies. But here now it became an open group, an open community. Third point, 2010, when Steve Jobs launches the iPad. Why? Because Steve Jobs and Apple have invented very new things, quite different things now, because it made it simpler, because they thought, let's create a computer mostly oriented to the visualization of things of low power, because I don't require too much power, and very easy to use. Something that can be used by anyone walking through this planet. When I saw the specifications, I said, no, I'll never have something like this. That was a terrible mistake. When I saw this little thing, really, I became an addict. And today, I use an iPad. Yes, I use it. For how long? Well, half the time. And the rest, I could never do it in an iPad. I hope you have not the bad taste of trying to do so with the iPad, because we would go back to the failure of other tablets. Why it happened with the iPad and not with the iPhone? Because there are moments, and this had a great impact on the industry and in all the mankind, and created competitors, increased enormously the size of the market. But if I said that in the time of mainframe the power was concentrated in the company, and now where is the power? The power has been fully transferred to all common citizens, who to some extent have chosen these little devices and make them personal, because each one of us load whatever you want, and all of them are different. Then it increased the number of users with a high level of freedom and a great capability of use. The increase of the market becomes explosive and is waiting for us. Or it cannot afford to wait for anybody. So we must act very quickly. What has happened since last year, when we launched our first beta, which we thought it was far more complete than it actually was until today? Well, I'm going to organize myself in 3 items: technology, community, and attitude. You could tell me that community and attitude are not independent elements, but I wish to separate them. As far as technology is concerned, as to technology, how can I talk about technology after 150 presentations here? Some things have been quite illustrative. For instance, a conference on cloud computing, where obviously the participants did not agree and did not reach a conclusion, fortunately, because otherwise something should be wrong. But we have learned a lot. Then, another round table on the title I had given, that was PC, is it dead? Well, in this case, nobody reached an agreement, but none tried to do so. It was quite enjoyable. Those who didn't see these round tables, please look at them at the web, because they're really worthwhile. and with so many presentations, very interesting presentations. For example, Breogán Gonda from our training sector, who played to do GeneXus domotics in a very simple form. There are always more things that can be done. Well, I was to make an introduction about who is Roqueta, but I think it's rather useless. But I want to reiterate a statement made by Roqueta. I don't know if it can be published or not, but it drew my attention. And it said, in the moments of leisure, I create systems for leisure. A recursive statement. But he said something that is quite true. One of the major markets that we have to address, to support with our systems, is precisely the leisure market that is increasingly important.
Milano has been talking about important things such as the conceptual model. On which our architecture of smart devices is based. Nicolas, well, what can I tell about Nicolas? It would be long, and he just said it. And GeneXus, by the way. Well, we've had a tough year. Because at the beginning, we used to say some people will be interested in smart device systems, and they will become sort of addendas to corporate systems, which are the ones we've always worked for. And that's true. But not just that. When we started playing this game, we saw a whole different scenario. In a world where the US and Europe are going through a strong crisis, very few were interested in placing orders with a smart device and having them integrated with their RPs. Everyone was interested in things that help them sell, that help them reach the user, the average user, as well as each of those users like it, they need it. And these devices and this technology is very important for that. So we had to do a lot of things beyond what we had imagined. And if we place ourselves in a situation where by the end of 2009 everything was in order, 100% of completeness, which is essential for us because this is the only way for us to ensure that there will be automatic maintenance for our clients, 100% of universality, every living platform is supported with us. These are still permanent commitments that we have had with our clients. There's no degree of freedom here. A very important productivity increase. Our goal was that we wanted to have 20 to 1 in terms of comparing manual programmers with, for example, Java and C#. And if we achieved that, we would have been at peace. And then we have usability. We always want more usability, because we want to expand our base. We want more people to be able to use it. And what happened? When smart devices appeared, this became complicated because completeness was violently reduced, because there's a number of things that need to be done. Same thing with universality. And we have worked there throughout the year. And we have come to this situation. We have managed to obtain completeness in terms of our goal for the type of thing we have decided to do. We have obtained universality because we support every living platform. Then there was an unintended effect, which was the increase of productivity was much higher than the one we had expected. Why? Because now there is no more capacity of choosing. So whatever company wants to make a smart device system, they cannot choose a platform. They have to do everything for all of them. In that environment, our productivity increases a lot. And then we need to try to improve usability, a sort of tour de force. But I think that we really know so much more about this. What can I say about GeneXus? What can technology say? Technology is there. And the community? The other great pillar there's an ecosystem of 84,000 members. This is self-explanatory. Let it continue to grow. We have worked along some lines. For example, the challenges we have made, Smart Challenge for universities, and then for the community. Between both of them, we received almost 100 projects. We have seen them. We have given the awards for them. At a moment when we would say that this is untimely, we came up with the idea of making another contest, a contest of ideas. And why this? If we're thinking, if we want people to think as much in the what as in the how, then we're gonna give that to traditional developers and we will make them think outside the context. We thought it was sort of artificial. So if we want to reach people, pedestrians, we need to ask them. So we had the Ideas Challenge with almost 300 participants. It was such a mess because we needed to read about those 300 ideas, especially when you gave absolute freedom as to how to submit them. We worked quite a lot with Gustavo Garriquiri and Cynthia. We made decisions as to who were the winners, and we awarded all the prizes for that. But beyond the contest, the challenge per se, the fact that we had to read those 300 ideas This was extremely rich for me. Why? Because we had other points of view, not just ours. Very enriching points of view of people who in general work with very low degree of abstraction, who give us very concrete things. But we're the ones who decide what the abstraction will be. Now, we need to make an abstraction in order to raise the bar and be able to reach the utopia tomorrow, next year, whenever, where these people will be able to build their applications just because they had an idea. And this is what we're heading. This is where we're heading at the right pace. So, what can we say about the community? The community is there. So, very briefly, I wanted to talk about attitude. When I was a teenager, quite a long time ago, people talked about comparative advantages. Comparative advantages were defining factors. It would define whether a country was meant to be rich or poor. Some of those comparative advantages were, are we in an agricultural economy? If we are in an agricultural economy, the amount of land that I have and how fertile the land is. And then, by then, after the war, we were going from a basically agriculturally oriented economy to a basically industrial economy. And what were the comparative advantages of an industrial economy? There were others: infrastructure, to develop industry, technology, and capital. And what happened between the agricultural economy and the industrial economy? In some countries, like the US, they coexisted very well. Agricultural economy never disappeared. But it's clear to me that those countries that just remained with an agriculture-oriented economy, no matter whether they were leaders at some time, they were gradually becoming poorer and poorer compared to those that started working with industrial economies. But the comparative advantages were still clear. What things are comparative advantages today in this globalized world? In this society that many people call post-industrial? Well, that will depend on what area of the world we are referring to. So, I believe that comparative advantages are not important today, not as important today. We need certain competitive advantages. What am I capable to do here and now when faced with a concrete problem? And that capacity is the one that defines it all. And it distributes richness or poorness or poverty according to the case. How do we innovate? Can we institutionalize innovation? I will work in terms of innovation in our tech. So, I will only innovate. I will sit every day with a blank piece of paper, and I will write down all my brilliant ideas. Of course, I won't come up with any idea. Innovation is an attitude. I believe that people are not so different from each other by the capacity of having ideas. I think that the great differentiating factor is the capacity to choose the right ones. So, I believe that nowadays we have a much more important than comparative advantages, and that is attitude. And for these purposes, I would define attitude as a capacity to work, responsibility, generosity, and enthusiasm. Work, responsibility, generosity, and enthusiasm. I think that's what defines it. And I will give a couple of examples here. Very few examples, but they're enough. One in the community and another one outside the community. One example is this one. In the last year, Uruguayan soccer was very successful. 4th place in the World Championship of South Africa. 2nd place in the World Championship of Mexico. Peñarol. 2nd place in the American Clubs Championship, and Uruguay, the 1st place, the champion of America. Would this mean that we have recovered the competitive advantages? Uruguayan soccer, the soccer from River Plate, used to have comparative advantages for some 30 years in the last century. That was a long time ago. But this is not that. This is work, enthusiasm, responsibility, and generosity. The other story that I wanted to tell you about is a story about the community. 8 years ago, one day, a Japanese diplomat, Mr. Fumio Owaki, came to my desk in 18 de Julio Street. I speak sort of cowboy English, explained to him what GeneXus was and how it would be good for a high-income country such as Japan. I was very enthusiastic about it, and I saw some sort of skepticism of my counterpart. But I was wrong. After 5 minutes, more or less, the conversation changed, and my counterpart started having my enthusiasm, or even overcame my own enthusiasm. It was such so that I ended up being a conservative person, and I'm never a conservative person. I ended up saying, but we have some problems. There are always problems. There's a cultural gap between us, and we need to face problems. That's not easy, but if we face them together, we will make it. And 8 years went by. And today, GeneXus in Japan is a huge success. And I would say that this is just the beginning. And why and how was this achieved? With work, enthusiasm, responsibility, and generosity. Thank you. I especially congratulate GeneXus Japan. I especially want to congratulate the GeneXus community of Japan. And of Milwaukee, I want to congratulate you, but very especially I want to thank you for the trust. And this is a lot. These are just two examples, but these are determining examples. Attitude is there, ladies and gentlemen. We could have a huge amount of examples in the community. So, the world is requiring what we can do. We have the technology for it. We have the community. We have the attitude. So what can I say? Do it.